Hey guys, Salvador here with Detailers Growth, and today I am met with Daniel Ricardo of Ricardo's Detail Garage in Australia. How are you, Daniel?
Yeah, good mate. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for making the time. So, very happy to be here. You came on board a little bit over a month ago, but I think you were 3 weeks into your journey where you really saw like an explosion of growth in terms of coatings. So, you came on board the 13th of December, which was
Yep,
right a little bit before Christmas. Had a little bit of a Christmas break in there, so got to
yep.
factor that in. And then I believe on the 8th of January, you sent over a message saying that you had already booked 3K in coatings and you had another 3K already scheduled into your calendar. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we closed by, it was funny, the first week, basically we booked $1,000 for that week. And then that guy did another coating. He loved it. So he did another coating in the new year when we came back. And then we did another job. So we closed $3,000 of business. And then we also had another three or $4,000 booked and deposits taken on it. So it was like stuff that was just locked and loaded. So it was a massive difference to what we're sort of used to previously. So it was just good to see, even though like I was out of range over Christmas. So
Yeah.
I was off camping. So I was like, I'll just turn it off because there's no point. I can't answer phone calls. But it was just, yeah, it was really good to see that one, the return was already there, but now we're starting to build consistency. But also what it was just the quality of leads, like a big difference. So where it was good, like it's yeah, half people still don't answer, but there's such a high amount of leads that you just sort of go through that, and that's fine.
Love it. Love it. That's amazing to hear. Can you walk us through what business was like before coming on board with Detailers Growth and ultimately what kind of made you reach out to us?
Yeah, so I've done a fair bit of learning and growth in my own side, coaching into we had our own system set up, which was working to a degree. The quality of leads wasn't the same because the content strategy wasn't the same as what we're doing now, but it was working. The problem that I always ran into was that I got to the point where I got so busy where I should have been hiring someone else to take over the tools, and then I would spend half the day on the phone, but I didn't, and then I'd just not get a hold of phone calls. And so I have five good leads there, and then you take 2 days to get back to them, and then they're gone in the wind. So we brought on a marketing guy, approached me and said, "Hey, I can do the marketing for you, and I'll even phone them and make the phone call initially and book them in for an inspection." I was like, and he's apparently had results. So I was like, okay, well, let's give it a go. And I checked his costings and looked at what we're doing. I said, well, it should fit into the budget that we're already spending. 3 months later, it just didn't work. 1 month, we didn't even like he worked on a quota basis, so and we didn't even meet quota for any of the
Wow.
months. So it wasn't costing me anything for his service, but he also wasn't producing
Ah,
overall. But I was still paying for ads, and so I terminated after 3 months or so. We pulled the plug. I said, look, it's obviously not working. I need to move on. So we parted ways. And at that point, I'm like, I just have to double down, put my old system back into place, which was working to a degree. And then I started seeing your ads come up. And I was like, I'm not another marketing guy. Like, piss off. Like, I'm I'm sick of this crap. Like, they're all just full of crap. Anyway, so but then I dug a bit deeper and I had a look at the testimonials, the abundance of testimonials, and I just kept digging and looking. I'm like, okay, well, you can't fake that many people. Like, it's very difficult as a business to fake that. So I started doing some digging. I was like, okay, well, it's worth having a talk to this guy. So that was probably the biggest thing is the inconsistency of what we were doing. We relied heavily on our industrial work, but the coatings were not consistent, and it was a slow grind trying to get up to consistent spending, probably more in ads than I am now. And yeah, so yeah, that was pretty much where we were at. And it was a lot of frustration. It's just faster, and after because 3 months of low volume, I had to try and recover, and we were in a very bad position that we're digging ourselves out of now. That we have that's a light in the end of the tunnel. So that's
got it.
basically where we were at. It was pretty frustrating. It was just like I don't see because we were invested heavily in the business as far as we're ready to scale, but we have to scale. If we don't scale, we'll go broke. So
Yeah.
it's a good, like it's kind of, we're kind of in that position. So it's kind of good. But the other side is we have to do this. Otherwise, yeah, I've got too much infrastructure in place and it's going to
Got it.
break us. So yeah, that's
Okay.
where we were before.
Cool. And just to double click on the previous agency you were working with who was calling up your leads for you, can you give a little bit of insight as to why you think that didn't work?
Well, I think the big thing was is that I tried to outsource my sales. If that's the underlying rule, is that I outsourced my sales department, and it wasn't. someone from my shop who knew what they were talking about talking to them. It was a
Yeah.
guy who has multiple accounts and who's making the same sort of conversations. The big problem I had is that he would follow them up and do all that, but then he'd book people in, and most of them don't show up to the inspection. But my business was, I most of the time I bring people up, I close them over the phone. So I know the business, we know the deal, and they're happy with the deal. They take a deposit and close them over the phone. We're done. And he couldn't adjust to that. So that was probably the biggest mistake was that, and this is probably what really grabbed my attention with Detailers Growth was that they don't take over the sales department. I'm thinking because I like the idea that someone would be following up and it would lead me to be on the tools, but I realized I was the best
Yeah.
person to be on the phone. And then when we get to a point of being in a shop, which where that plan's accelerating quite quickly, I'll have a shop manager and his job will be there to take over the sales because
Love
he's
it.
also in the shop. He knows what he's talking about. And then he'll be meeting the customers face to face as well. So I think outsourcing the sales department is a very, very dangerous thing. Marketing is one thing to get the lead, but I think the people who are handling it and people love talking to the people who are actually doing the job.
Yeah,
So they love
100%.
it. So, and you know, you're passionate. They can hear it in your voice. They know what you're talking about. You're not full of crap. And when they know that and they feel confident, they're like, oh, yeah, cool. Everything matches.
Yeah. And
So
those
that was
little
a big
things like
difference.
that confidence, those little things like that confidence that somebody gets from just talking with you, talking with the owner, they can pick up on that.
Yeah.
And that ultimately decides whether or not they go with you or somebody else who's
Yep.
just as much as an expert, but actually
Yep.
knows what they're talking about. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
And
I
we
think
always
you
tell
got to keep the
clients
sales in house. Yeah. That's the
exactly
golden rule. Yep.
100%. We always tell clients nobody knows your business like you do.
Yep.
And usually the owner transitions from doing the jobs to doing more sales, or they outsource it in-house still. So
Yep.
they bring on a sales rep, a dedicated sales rep for only their business, and it works out perfectly that way. And that's kind of like what our system is set around,
Yeah.
which is great. And I'm glad that you guys are able to not only recover from that downfall that you guys had, right? Trying to get out of that, but now you guys have infrastructure in place to scale beyond that.
I can actually plan. Before I was planning, but it was a hope and a dream that this is where I want to be. I need to
Yeah,
figure this lead generation issue out. And it was always like, so much of a struggle. And now I'm like, okay, we got leads coming in every day. I have to be like, I know my guys know I've got two great guys in place now where they're on the tools. They know that they're going to be on the tools by themselves for the first half of the day. That's the plan. I'm on the phone and then I join them in the later half of the day. So it's really good. It's like I know that I just have to my most important thing every day is to make sure every single inquiry from the previous day has been made. So has been
got it.
contacted. Like it's really, yeah, I can actually plan and project a lot more precisely now. So
I
it's, yeah,
love
it's a
that.
big relief. Yeah.
I love that. Would you be able to give insight into your sales process from, let's just say, the moment somebody calls you, how does that conversation usually go and your follow-up process as well?
Yeah. So I've been in sales since I was 14. So, but I've always struggled. I know I probably role play is my biggest downfall. I don't do enough of it. But one thing I've been doing is watching a lot of the videos from you guys and learning from that and also from others as well. But I find I kind of like actually your approach and I swing towards that. And that was probably the biggest thing, just a sidetrack that I noticed when I was on the phone to you the first time. I was like, because I was expecting, okay, this guy's going to try and close me and do this and that. And
Yeah.
then you're literally just not saying anything. I'm like, he doesn't give a crap. Like in my back of my mind, I'm like, he does, but he's like, this is what it is. Like I'm like you're sort of
Yeah.
violating all the basic rules of sales, but I'm like I kind of
Yes.
liked it, and I was just like, but I also you've also built up enough evidence behind you that people are ready to. I was ready to pull the trigger if I saw enough to get me across the line, and that's kind of where I'm at with the business. I don't hard close people. I struggle with that. I just like letting people make the decision. I probably could definitely work on and improve on that area in overcoming specific objections. But I always found that the frame of mind that you're in sometimes is you got to really check that before you get on the phone. So like it really helps. You got to be up. So you got to make sure
Yeah.
that you're up and ready. So usually once I've finished making all the previous, like anything that sort of lands in my account from 12 o'clock onwards, I generally don't get back to them that day. I'll leave it for the next day and let them accumulate. So that's basically what my day will look like. So I'll get my guys in. Well, one of them's just arrived now. We'll get kicked off, and from about 9 o'clock, I'll start answering leads, depending on how many's there. We seem to get between 3 to 5 or 6 a day. So And then I'll get through those leads, go through, update all the CRM. The CRM's fantastic too. You can track everything and then send out any emails and everything that needs to be required. And then yeah, so from the phone call, it's like you're basically just getting them on the phone to finding out what it's really. I find it really helps to put your doctor's hat on. So don't think about it's think
Yes, that
moving
is
away
such a good
from
analogy.
thinking about I need to close this sale. I think about what do these people actually need?
Yes.
What's the problem they're facing and what do they actually need, and you're really putting that doctor's hat on to really diagnose the issue, and then your professionalism comes out and they can see that because if they're talking to you, either one, they've seen the video, or I had a guy call me yesterday. He had two brand new cars. He goes, I've been on your website. Didn't come from you guys, but it been on the website. I've seen
Yeah.
your reviews. I've seen all this. He was like ready. He goes, I got two brand new BMWs that just arrived. I want them done. I said, great. You've already seen the packages. Boom, boom. This is what he goes, done. Book it in. So it was just like, yeah, you sort of, you can do two ways. You can try and convince him yourself, or you can build so much supporting evidence around you that you basically move
Yes.
them through that funnel naturally. So I like that approach. And my closing rate officially at the moment, it's only about 5%. And we're already at 5%. I think if we accumulate everything from booked is about 10%, but just
Yeah.
closed at the moment. I know I need to wait a couple of months to really find out what's going on because there's so much else in the pipeline. So that's okay.
Yeah. And it's,
But
typically the slower season at the moment. I know in Australia it's a little bit different over there. Here in the States, right now, winter, you get that winter slump. But we just came
yeah,
from Christmas, New Year's.
well, that's what I was happy about. I was like, first of all, you guys paid yourselves off in the first week. So I'm like, awesome. And then the marketing bill was paid the week we came back. And then we just had to ramp it up, and we've still got to push through some issues, but we can actually see. But we just started booking out. Like I've got two booked jobs for 3 weeks away. Like this is what's starting to happen, is that it's starting to accumulate, and I can actually get to,
Yes.
our goal is to get to 2,000 revenue a day. At that, we're sitting sweet and we're moving really nicely. Then we can try, then we got to look at transitioning from, I got a double garage at my house set up as a workshop. Then we need to move into a bigger shop where we can have 4 or 5 cars in the run. So that's going to be our next issue. So, but yeah, we've got a massive financial issues we have to overcome. But now that we have a pathway out, so yeah.
That's amazing to hear. And real quick, one thing I do want to double click on is Danielle, from your point of view, why would you say sales is such a key component to your business, just in general? Turning a stranger into a book job, why is that so important? And all the knowledge around it that we emphasize so
I'll give a little
much.
bit of background context, and I think I've actually got a bit of a mentoring background where I'm actually heavily involved with quite a few different guys mentoring because I really
Yeah.
that's actually the real reason why I do the business. Is not This is why I was watching. I think it was Diamond Detailing, the guy who sets
Yep.
up all those mobile, and he's got the same attitude. My big drive is actually building guys and training guys up. It's not really doing the detailing.
Yes.
It's just a way to be able to help people and grow them. But there's a really great book that I would recommend every single business owner must read. It's called E-Myth Revisited. And he talks about the three vital components of every business, and which is, one's the tech guy to do the trade, one's the business manager, and one's your sales guy. And he said the sales guy is the single most important part of your business. You can outsource the trade and you can get someone to come and run your books and run the meetings. But if you've got no sales, you have no business. It's as simple as that. You can be as good as you want on the tools, but if no one knows it and you're not booking jobs, it doesn't matter. So
Exactly.
that's probably the biggest analogy. E-Myth Revisited, I think it's Michael Gerber. Fantastic book. It really lays out an awesome framework for how every business actually operates, but most people just aren't aware of how they go, oh, I'm really good at detail. It's like, yeah, well, who cares? Like if no
Yes.
one knows it,
Yes.
and if you can't talk to people, if you don't know people, it doesn't matter. So it's not just going to magically appear and go, oh, I've seen your work. It's like, well, you'll get a few jobs like that, but you won't book out and
Yeah.
you won't grow it. So this is where the sales, it is so critical. So, but I find the biggest problem, the biggest hurdle I find when dealing with sales with people, they go, oh, I don't want to be a salesman. It's like, well, it's probably because you've had a bad experience with sales and you don't understand what sales is. And true sales, because they know they come from a sleazy, they've been
Yeah. Yeah.
mistreated, they've been abused. True sales is nothing more than pure effective communication. When there's, because if there's no deal there, there's no deal there. But if there's a deal there, like in Grant Cardone would say, it's like it's in their best interest. It's in if you're doing the right thing by that person, they should be going with you. So, and that it's your interest to make that happen in the most ethical possible way.
1000%. And that's exactly the approach we take to advertising. Like you
Yeah.
mentioned, we take a very diagnostic approach to advertising where if it's not a good fit for that person, it's not a good fit. Simple,
There
right?
was my
Pretty
biggest
simple.
skepticism with you guys is like, oh, these guys are going to promise everything. And then they go to, because my last guy did that. He's like, oh,
Yeah.
but then he started, he wanted to have $500 discount here. Five. I'm just like, you said the price wasn't an issue, but then he said, like, what is going on? And like, I'm like, oh, these guys are going to do the same thing. And the first thing I think it was Claudia from your team. She goes, oh, we want to do, she goes, I do recommend doing a $200 offer. I'm like, okay. Like, and I actually increased my prices that as well, which I did
Yes.
with the other one, but it just made it because everyone does $500 off. I'm like, cool. But I'm actually looking to moving to the point where we start booking out, I'll start increasing my prices as well. So like I will actually do that. But it was quite funny. Like, yeah, it was just like, yeah,
Yeah.
well, that was like, oh, they're actually doing what they said that they were going to do. So
It works out perfectly. It works out perfectly. And one thing I do want to mention with the video content is Daniel, I remember like the first maybe 48 hours that you came on board, you watched our video content guide that shows you the 5 different
yeah,
educational videos to make. And within 48 hours, you already had one made, which was
I had
amazing.
5 made. So I actually had a slow period. This is how bad we were in the position we were in. I'm like, stuff it. My nephew's car, he just purchased it and it was the Kia that we used. And I said, I've got time on my hands. Let's
Yeah.
clean up the workshop, make it video worthy, and let's do it. And what I loved was the content guide was so precise. I just watched and did exactly what it said and polished half his bonnet. I showed him how to use the polish and he did the rest of his car. But I did his bonnet and made that look good. And
Nice.
yeah, that was within the 48 hours we had that up because I was like, I need this to work. And if it's going to
Yeah.
work, I got to do my part. So they want this content, which is what, and then it as soon as I tell you, man, I got like 3 leads in total from the first video you guys put up. It was terrible. It was like in the first week. It was just a
Yeah.
generic video. It's generic one that everyone puts out. But then I put that video up overnight. I had like 10 leads come in. It was just like I'm
It's
like, what the hell is
amazing.
going on? It's
Yes.
slowed down a little
Those
bit now, which is what sort of happens. But it was just like I
yes.
was just like, what the heck is going on? And then my staff would look at the video, and goes, "It's so boring, Daniel. It's 4 minutes of this and that." I said, "Yeah, because you're not a buyer." But then
Yeah.
you got people who are buying, who are interested. They're like, "Oh wow, what's going on?" Like it's funny the comments that you get from people. But I'm like, yeah, well, I don't care what people are saying. I care what people are doing, and the leads are coming.
Yes.
So yeah,
1000%, man. That's yeah. And hats off to you for executing right away.
it
You
has to be
know,
done. Like you got to do it. Yeah.
yeah,
That's what my biggest
1000%.
advice. Do that guide as soon as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Jump on and do it and then get on the sales calls.
Yeah. 1000%, man. And you've executed every step of the way to a T. And I think you're seeing that right now, and it's only going to compound going forward into 2024.
That's what we're looking at. So yeah, it's
Love it,
exciting.
man. Okay, cool. So, what would you say to somebody who might see this as an ad, might see it on YouTube, who's on the fence of either booking a call or coming on board with us? What would you say to that person on the fence?
I would say I'm always hesitant because the thing is that a lot of people aren't dedicated to learning and growing. So if that's not
Yes.
you, don't spend money on an agency because they may or may not work. But if you're committed to growing and developing, it means that you're reading books, you're putting yourself out there. If you're investing into yourself already, then definitely talk to these guys about what they can do. I actually had one guy in mind. He was having some issues. Oh, I'd like to talk to you personally about it. I haven't had a chance to speak to him. And I've got to make sure he's not in my area.
Yeah.
But I'll happily refer him over because it's like it's you got to do the work and put the sale get on this, learn to sell, learn to upgrade your skills because a lot of that's the big issue is that if you're not willing to upgrade your skill set in sales and learn to expand your mind in those areas, then don't waste your money. So, but if you're willing to do that, then these guys can be. I wouldn't even say they're a part of the team in a sense. The way we're looking and the way we're working together and the consistency, they do what they say they do as long as you do your work, which is all within means and with all within very reasonable, very very reasonable, and you'll upgrade your profile massively. So, and I got it from a cost perspective, it's very fair, very very fair. So there's no mucking around there, which is really good for the quality and I'll say from the follow up from your whole team. Like I'm constantly engaged with your whole team from
Yeah.
depending on what needs to be done. Everything's like and it's never more than a few hours usually. Like we're in Australia, so the time difference here is pretty different. the sales calls kind of suck because it's 5 o'clock in the morning, but it's like
Yeah,
I'm usually at the gym by that time anyway, so I just sacrificed a day at the gym. But I would say like from sending messages to like the complete responsiveness and the professionality that you provide is excellent. And I would say like anyone who's serious about growing their business, definitely talk to you about that, because that's exactly what you do, what you say you do is exactly what you do. So
love it. Love it. And just to wrap things up here, Daniel, what does 2024 look like for your business? What do you have in plan? And I know earlier you mentioned, working your way towards a shop,
mm.
but, walk me through what 2024 will look like for your business.
Well, we've just made some improvements to our shop and expanded in the because we've been up we spit the bullet, bought a shed outside and moved half of our stuff outside so we can expand and have more room to work in. But that's the first goal is one, sort of get our pathway out of here because we've got massive bills as a business. I'm 4 years into a business and we've got massive big financial hills like from taxes and all that sort of stuff that you have to deal with and we've got to catch up on. So it's now we have a pathway out of that because we've got the systems in place. But the first big goal, once we've got things moving nice and consistently, we get that $2,000 a day, we'll be saving up, getting a deposit for a shop and moving into a shop as soon as we can. And then once that's in place, I'll be looking to remove my role as a shop manager. Because I think once in a shop, we can easily go to $3,000 a day, add tinting in, add PPF potentially later.
Yes.
I've seen a bit about Icon Rock Clear, so we're in talks with those
Ooh,
guys as well.
yes.
Yeah, it's very fascinating stuff, but it's not available here yet. So it's yeah, that's it was very interesting when I saw Aaron Latman
Yeah,
was talking about it.
yes.
I'm like, oh, it's okay, so it's real. It is real. It's not just the folks. Okay, that's interesting. So yeah, so we've got a few things to exciting things to look at. But that's basically in the next 6 months. Hopefully, we're in a shop, and if we can also then transition and bring the shop manager in. I've got a guy lined up already who runs his own detailing business. I think he'll be a very good fit. So there's exciting things there where I can potentially move out of the direct workshop role and then work on operating, growing, just work on the business. So we
Yeah,
can potentially move to by the end of the year if we can be on $3,000 a day revenue. Yeah, that's the projections over Christmas. We did all our projections and had a look at and what that looks like. What does it look like for profit share for my guys? That's a big thing. I want to be giving my guys quarterly bonuses, targets and things like that. So it's a very big, it's all a big part of the wheel. So that's what we're planning and looking at the moment.
I love that. I love that. Well, Daniel, I want to thank you so much for your time. You've been an amazing client. It's been nothing but pleasure working with you, and I appreciate everything that you've said about us and working with us. It means a lot to me and my team, and I'm excited for an even better 2024.
Yeah, I am too. That's really good. Thank you so much.
Likewise.